Alright, so let's do another Terraforming Mars top 10, and this time I'm gonna do the top 10 most overused cards. I don't want to say overrated, I just want to say overused in Terraforming Mars, and it's specific to the Steam version. Because that's the only place where I have enough data to say that they're overused. Again, I'm not gonna say overrated because some cards people actually rate lower, but they end up playing anyway. Yeah, so a few things before. Okay, this is not at all something like talking about how good the card is. It's just about how much is played with respect to how good the card is. So they're not in order of best to worst, or more used to less used, just sort of what I perceive as the ratio between those two things. And to give you an example, I think Mass Converter is a fantastic card. It's not in this countdown, but it's overused near the end of games. I think players just play them because it's one of the best cards in the game and don't realize that it doesn't give you anything late. However, because it's so good early, I'm not going to put it here. But that's sort of what I mean, right? Like, the card can be really good, but there's just sometimes that you don't need to play it, and that's what I would call overused. Or it could be really bad, and I say it rarely, but I think I should see it never. Like, if I saw Underground Detonations 1 or 2 times, that's overused. Unfortunately, I never see it, because it's like pretty assuredly the worst card in the game. But anyway, let's begin. Let's start with Equatorial Magnetizer. And yeah, this is a card that I think most people are aware that it's not very good. And it's not used too much, but it is more than I think. And I'm not gonna say that the problem is that you use it, because if you have 3 energy production and you can play this 3 gens before the end, it's a pretty nice point ratio, right? Equatorial Magnetizer is gonna give you 3 points, which you know, for 14 costs 11. That's nice. That's basically the same as Advanced Ecosystems, and Advanced Ecosystems is a great card. My question is, why do you have 3 energy that you're not gonna use? Were you maybe using energy as heat? Or did you overpay for energy? Did you overpay late? And so there's basically 2 reasons why that I think justify this, and one is you played some energy early to use as heat, and now the heat is maxed out, and in that case you play Equatorial Magnetizer, that's fine. And the second one is you played, you know, Mass Converter or Quantum Extractor mid-game, or both, and the space bonus justifies it mid-game, not late game, but it does mid-game, and now you have 10 energy, so you do whatever you want with Equatorial Magnetizer. The third reason is your Thorgate, maybe, and you know, I guess. But yeah, the thing that I see a lot with this card is that players actually overestimate how much energy they need. They don't get enough heat to justify it, and when they play Equatorial Magnetizer, they're not getting 14 points for 3 points for 14 cash. They are getting a lot less because you have to count how much you spent on energy and how little you got out of that energy, which is maybe not even 1 hit step, right? So yeah, number 10, Equatorial Magnetizer. Number 9, okay, Callisto Penal Mines. And this is sort of a Jovian that I see people play early often, but if you think about it, this costs 27, and if there are 10 generations in the game, it only pays back by the end of the game. So it's a terrible economy builder, in that it doesn't build your economy. It's too expensive. Like, it gives you the same production on Acquired Company for 14 more. So it's horrible. It is nice that it has 2 points, but then I think people should play it as a point card mid-game or late so that you get some back if you have Jovian multipliers. Like, if you can get 4 points out of these, so 2 Jovian multipliers, then it's probably worth it mid to late game. Otherwise, with 1 multiplier, unlikely. But yeah, I do see players play this a lot, and early to build economy, and I don't think you should. And number 8, one that I actually see a lot more, and it's similar if you think about it, and that's Phobos Space Haven. And I mean, it costs 1 more, it has an extra point, but no Jovian tech, and it gives you 3 production, but it's titanium instead of cash, so it's actually worse because it's less flexible. it has an assured point, and unless you get to Jovian Tax, it'll have more points, but it also costs one more. And it has a city, so if you're playing this to steal Mayor, I get it. Otherwise, this is actually about as bad as Callisto Penal Mines. And that's the thing, I see Phobos played a lot more than for Callisto Penal Mines. I think a lot of players know Callisto is not the best card, but it's weak and they still play it. I see Phobos Space Haven just played a lot. And usually with Titanium, but maybe as Titanium dumps early, but it's not a good Titanium dumps early. I'm not going to do the math again, but this one is worse than Callisto Penal Mine because it costs one more and it's less flexible, right? So yeah, again, Phobos Space Haven, terrible economy builder. As a point guard late, it's not even that good because I mean, if you have some space discounts maybe, but otherwise you're paying 28 for 3 points. That's on over 9 per point, which is on the heavy side. So Greenery could get you the same. City could get you the same, and they're both cheaper, and an award gets you much more, even if it's the third one. Number 7, Deep Well Heating, and this is just one of those weird cards that I don't think it's good at either of the things it does. It's a very expensive temperature raise at 16, and it's a very expensive energy at 16, and how often do you want both at the same time? Like, I don't know, it's not a terrible card, like, it's not, like, when you consider both things, like, an energy should cost 7, a temperature about 10, I think. So at 17, and this one costs 16, I guess that's decent. But I just don't think one temperature is significant enough to like want this card. And if you want to get an energy, then you might consider a standard product over this, because it's 5 cheaper, which is a lot. Of course, you're not getting a point, I know, but you might not be able to play your energy card then. And so I see this one like often drafted and played, not drafted first, but if it's there, people will take it and will be happy to like raise their energy this way. It's just that the heat step doesn't get you much. So yeah, I've never liked this card. I rarely use it. Number 6, House Printing, and this is another terrible economy builder, not as bad as the ones I mentioned, but for 13 you get 2 steel, which means it pays back in 7 generations, and by then you probably don't even want steel. And so you don't want the point early, you don't want the steel late at all. It's worse than money production because you don't even use steel late. The reason I see this played is that you're floating a lot of steel and don't find a steel dump. And again, if you do this to claim builder, it's fine, but otherwise just be patient. You'll probably get a city at some point that'll be worth a lot more than house printing for, you know, a few extra steels that you might not even use anyway if you have so much steel already, right? So house printing, just too expensive for points, too expensive for production, not good early, not good late, just a bad card, and I do see it played. Okay, now I'm gonna get into probably some cards that are a little better and maybe a little controversial, except well, there's a few bad ones still, but number 5, Investment Loan. This is by no means a bad card, right? Late in the game, it usually is discounted because it's an Earth event. And by then getting 10 and giving 1 production, like it's like Media Group, sorry, not Media Group, Media Archives, where at the end of the game it's just free cash basically. And Media Archives does have a higher upside, but Investment Loan requires very little for it to be free cash, and it doesn't depend on the number of players. The mistake I see people make with this is play it early to rush 1 additional card, which is rarely worth it, because early this card costs 3 plus 3 to buy it, it costs 6, and you're getting 10. And so what it gives you is 4 cash, which is not that much because you're giving up a bunch of income for the rest of the game. And so you have to think, does playing my card a generation early like really justify losing all that income? because like it would have to be a card like you're getting 4 cash, you're losing 1 per generation after that, and you're also losing the opportunity of playing it late for basically no cost. So keep that in mind. That this card is okay to buy, just don't play early. And you're hurting your economy a little bit. And is the card you're playing really gonna give you that much cash, that much extra cash, or should you just wait a generation and keep investment loan until the end of the game? You know, just produce a little slower, but in the end of the game you have 10 extra cash. And yeah, I don't like when I see this card early, and sometimes you see it early to play something like sponsors, and it's like, okay, that's just a mistake. Like you see in Gen 1 to play an additional cash producer, it's usually a small one, so it really just okay, not sponsors, but maybe even acquired company. Okay, number 4, and this is a card that's just terrible. Release of inert gases. It's not worth it. Again, 4 points. It's not worth it for the production, and I see it played even more than something like house printing. And it's also, you can't even dump steel on it. You have to pay hard cash for it. And so again, it's 17. You're paying 8.5 per point. That's pretty bad late. It's and then again 17. It gives you 2 production, pays back in 8 generations. Sorry, 9 generations. It has to go to 18, so it doesn't pay back. So there's just not a place to play this. Even UNMI, I would not recommend doing this. Well, UNMI, if you can get your 3 extra, then it becomes more efficient, but it's probably you're losing the game if release of inert gases is your way to go. And so yeah, there's really no reason to play this. I can't think of one. It's one of those cards that I really, there's almost no moment to play this unless you have no better source for points at the end of the game, or it helps you flip Benefactor, something like that, or maybe it helps you get Terraformer, but probably there are better ways to do that. And so it's not that I see it much, it's that it's one of those that I say, okay, I should see this never. Which is similar to number 3, which is Stratopolis, but I see Stratopolis a lot more than I see release of inert gases. So Stratopolis, I think most people know it's not efficient, but like if you see, you know, if they get a floater card, then it just becomes so like, ooh, 2 floaters every turn. But it rarely pays off. And again, early is probably gonna be an investment into points early, which is already bad. Obviously, the 2 production is never gonna pay back the 25 cash that it takes to play this. That would take 13 generations. After you play it, and then the 2 floaters. Okay, how many points can you get? Let's say you have floating hubs, and let's not count the investment into floating hubs. You can get 1 point a turn, which, like, unless you get both down in the first generation, in which case you probably hurt your economy a little bit. Let's say you play these like 4 generations from the end. That's 4 points. Not counting that you have another card that's more efficient than itself, and you're still paying 25, which is a horrible ratio. At 5 points, 5 per points, it's decent. But then you're paying that much earlier, okay? So it's not like you're paying, you know, Interstellar Colony Ship, which in the last generation not only is going to be discounted, but it's also going to be like you're putting it all at the end of the game. If you pay that in the 6th generation to get 4 points, then you're paying for that so much earlier, and that's so much worse, right? So yeah, Stratopolis, a card that I almost never justify playing. Even Overlord, I would encourage you to find another milestone to claim. Like most of these cards I've mentioned get sort of a pass for an award or a milestone. I don't think Stratopolis is worth Overlord. Like, I don't think that's worth it. You're probably gonna have to play somewhere horrible anyway. If you, like, you're gonna get less of a point ratio, and you'll be screwed economically. You'll get your milestone, but you'll be screwed economically because it's just too big an investment, and it still takes like 4 turns to get there. So yeah, horrible. I should almost never see this played. Okay, number 2, pets. Pets is good, don't get me wrong, but pets gets played always. Like I see pets in a draft, I know I'm not gonna see it again. And I know that player's gonna buy it and they're gonna play it in the next generation basically. And pets is just not that good, okay? And let me put it this way: if I see pets and acquired company in my opening hand, I am more excited about acquired company. I know the point ratio can be great, okay? So you're gonna pay 13 because it's not gonna be discounted early. And then you can get, like, I would say 5 points most. 3 or 4 is more common. And so, yeah, you're getting 4 points for 13. That's a great ratio. One of the best in the game. But you're doing the investment early. You're sacrificing your whole economy because of it, right? And then the other thing is that there is no guarantee. Like, you have to do the investment early, and if you are, maybe Tharsis is in game, okay, then Pets is justifiably playable. But you could even see Ecoline and think, okay, there's gonna be a ground game, and Ecoline just rushes and ocean walks the crap out of the game, and you see 3 cities placed because the game goes so fast, and then Pets was crap. It was, two or 3 points, 2 points for a card that you had to play really early, just not good enough. And so that's the thing. I think Pets has the higher ceiling of all the cards here. It's like, I would call it a good card. It's just like it shouldn't be played always, and in 2-player you should probably play it less than half the time. Like, you have to see a player that's going for ground and hasn't played too many cities, but you think the game's going to go long enough that ocean rush is not going to be the thing, but cities and greeneries, a less rushy kind of ground game. Then you play Pets, or if you know you're going to place a bunch of cities yourself, okay, then I understand it. But I just, it's crazy. Like, I see it in a draft. I usually pick another card, and early, of course, and then I often see like it doesn't come back in the next round in the draft, and it also gets played immediately. And then I just think the economy is more important. So yeah, good card, but I think way overused right now. And number 1, I'm gonna say Soletta, and I hate this card. I really do. Okay, I know it can get you very good hit production, and it's weird because Mohole and Solar Reflectors are cards that I like. It's just that the window to play this is so short. It's in the first generation, and it's like, okay, now that's your game. Like, that's what you do. You do hit, and that's like, you can't even diversify a little because you just spend all of your cash on that. And okay, first of all, whenever this gets played, like after a 3rd generation, is horrible. But even when it gets played in the 1st generation, I just think that there's often something better to do than heat. And you now have to go for plants, because if you just do heat, then you're screwed, because heat's not going to produce that many points, and plants are expensive, and you just spent so much money on heat that you left no money to spend on plants. And that's how I see players lose. I see them play this Gen 1 or 2, they get their heat to 7, usually they get it to 9 because they get the bonuses on the track, or they have some more heat production, maybe they're Helion, or they have a heat prelude, right? They get to 10 fast, but then they spent all their money on Soletta, and had they spent, Mohole, which is 15 less plus something you pick up, then you have 15 to start developing your plant, or your income to eventually develop your plants. But because you just went all in on heat, you're basically, like, what I see happen is that, and then they finish the heat 2 or 3 generations before the plants. You end up with a bunch of leftover heat. The game, you can't finish as early as you want it, and the player that went for cash and economy and card draw eventually passes you in the last generation in points and wins. And so that's what I see with Soletta. So it's not like, I think most people know you don't play this late, but I would say early is really dangerous, because you're just going all in on heat. And going all in on heat is bad. You should always do heat and plants. or weirdly heat and money, but that's rarely works. Like the player doing pure money is probably gonna do better. And so that's the thing. Like I'd rather, I would rather play Moho and design microorganisms, which is a bad, like mediocre card, and play these. I would obviously rather see like play Moho and Arctic Algae, for the same amount of money essentially. And that now that's a game, right? That's a player, a dangerous player. But I mean, I guess if you're credit core, then I think Soletta could be a play, or one of the Reacher Corps, maybe Lakefront, maybe Tractor, but otherwise, yeah, Soletta just ruins games from Gen 1, and I think it's the most overused card in Terraforming Mars. But anyway, that's it for my video. Let me know what you think, leave a comment, and yeah, see you next time.